begins with the question time took place last night by the Shadow Community Secretary Hilary Benn. Hilary Benn, the audience was quite animated against Ed Miliband last night on the state of the finances under the last Labour government, and I just want to look at this in a little bit more detail with you to see the reason why they may be. Douglas Alexander said on the Today programme this morning that it's ludicrous to suggest that because Gordon Brown's built more schools and hospitals that Lehman Brothers collapsed, and that is obviously a ludicrous thing to say. But I want to look at the state of the public finances on the eve of the crash in 2008. And the situation is that despite 14 years of economic growth, the structural deficit in 2007 was still 3% of GDP. It was the second highest in the G7, among the highest in the OECD. Why had Labour in the good years not done more to get the structural deficit down?
Well, good afternoon, Andrew, first of all. Secondly, to say, look, we were investing in public services, indeed, in those schools and hospitals and learning support assistants and neighbourhood police officers and all of the things that we did, because when we were elected in 1997, one of the reasons we won is that people were fed up with their children sharing textbooks in schools with outside loos, all of those kind of things. And the public infrastructure, public services needed to be invested in. We had, of course, a surplus on the budget. In the early years of that government, we were paying down the nation's debt before the global economic crisis hit.
No, I'm sorry, you weren't, Mr. Benn. You inherited a national debt of $300 billion in 1997. On the eve of the crash, it was $500 billion. You added 43% to the national debt. You weren't paying it down.
Well, with great respect, that isn't correct.
No, I'm sorry, these are correct. These are from the official Red Book figures of Gordon Brown's Treasury.
Well, one of the things that we did, and it was referred to last night, was the selling off of the gold reserves itself was
I'm not talking about the gold reserves. That's irrelevant.
I'm saying to help.
That's just Tory propaganda. I'm not putting that to you. I'm asking you why. I'm asking you why on the eve of the crash that we were still running the second highest structural deficit in the G7, the fourth highest in the OECD, and among the highest national debt of 26 OECD countries. My point about that is that it meant our finances were not in as good a shape as they could have been come the crash.
Because, as I said at the start, Andrew, in answering your question, is because we were investing in public services. That was the right thing to have done. And then the global economic crash hit. And I would say about Labour's spending, and this is an important point in view of the comments that David Cameron made last night, up until November 2008, as I'm sure you'll remember, Andrew, David Cameron used to say when he was leader of the opposition, well, we will match Labour's spending pound for pound. Now, he cannot now, after the event, say, oh, well, Labour was overspending, which is why
Mr. Benn, I'm not asking you about Tory policy, and I'm not asking you about what Mr. Cameron is saying.
It's why Ed Miliband said yesterday, in answer to a very direct question from a member of the audience at the question time event, did the last Labour government overspend? The answer is no, we didn't. It was a global economic crash, and we were worse hit because we were more dependent on revenue from business and financial services.
But my point to you, Mr.
Benn,
which I'm trying to get you to address, which has got nothing to do with David Cameron or whether Gordon Brown sold off the gold reserves, is this. This is the IFS from 2008, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, quote, "We are entering the current recession with one of the largest structural deficits in the industrial world and debt levels larger than most industrial countries." That's the point. Our finances were not, after 14 years of growth, not in as good a shape as they should have been to cope with an external shock like the collapse of Lehman Brothers.